You're tired of working day in and day out, trying to find new customers, chasing leads, doing whatever work comes your way, and never getting to earn what you're worth. You do it because you love the work, and you're passionate about serving older customers and their families. We get it. But what you need is more of the right customers for your business, and more income for you and your family, so you can grow and help more people in your community. Well, you're in the right place, because this is Booming Your Bottom Line.
Hi, this is Mark Hager, and you're listening to Booming Your Bottom Line. Today we're bringing you a brand new owner's chat with Karen Sands. Karen is the leading GeroFuturist and thought leader on the longevity economy, positive aging, ageless aging, women, and the future. A visionary leader, change agent, and master coach and mentor, consultant, strategist, motivational speaker, educator, expert trainer, has published 11 books, and she's an all-around trailblazer. Karen capitalizes on tomorrow's trends today, illuminating a new, deeper story around aging, a narrative fostering a lifetime of unlimited meaning, satisfaction, impact, and legacy making, as well as money-making futures that matter. Now, Karen's dual mission is to inspire those 40-plus find their voice and move confidently towards their highest vision, one which supports a new story for our times, and to turn the old story of aging, ageism, on its head, and turning the business of aging inside out. Karen, it is so good to talk with you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Karen, I know we're all busy. I appreciate you taking the time today. I know we talked a little bit in preparation, just so you understand that our focus today is on giving our listeners at Booming Your Bottom Line some great information about the aging boomer market from your perspective as a thought leader and the insight that you bring to the table. Our show is strictly about helping the small business owner, providing that insight and background so they can be inspired and learn from you while we chat here today. So if you're ready, why don't we just dive right in with my first question, which is, why don't you tell us what a GeroFuturist is, what do you do, and who do you serve?
Thank you so much. Well, to describe GeroFuturist, it's really easy to say it's a gerontologist and a futurist merged together, but it's really a bigger story. All of us have those career stories that keep evolving as we grow older. And where I started was as an educator and then as a serial entrepreneur that ended up in corporate America. Who ever thought, right? Not only did I end up in corporate America, I ended up in financial services, which I would never, ever have thought I would end up there. But more importantly, I ended up in the pensions and retirement services end of the business. And at that point, having been an educator, I didn't know what a pension was. I was 30. What is a pension? Is that something conductors get, trained conductors? That really was foreign to me. So I had to dive in. They brought me in as an entrepreneur going in as an intrapreneur. In fact, I was the first entrepreneur ever called that in corporate America way back when. But at that point, I didn't understand, what is this aging thing? Why do we need retirement services? Who are we serving? Blah, 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 blah. So I dove in, and that's where I got trained as a futurist, to look at not only what are the trends and the hottest trends that are coming, but what does it mean for the future? What are the alternative futures we can have? I didn't know a thing about gerontology, and it wasn't until I went through these years of being in corporate America, getting products out, training almost 10,000 advisors and agents on this market, especially the small and medium-sized market, which I'm assuming is primarily your audience as well, right? Mm-hmm. And so I got a whole nother taste of this. So when I left corporate, I had done everything I put on my bucket list to do in corporate America in a quick 10 years. And I said, okay, now who am I? What do I want to do? What matters to me? I found myself going back for a postmaster's in adult development and aging at Hunter with, of course, Rick Moody, one of the big names in the conscious aging field. And so after that, it was, so how do I combine this? And I realized that the only way, and it took me a lot of years to get here, was that who I was a combination of both, which is the study of aging and adult development throughout the lifespan, as that's how I define gerontology, and the futurist that's looking at, so what are the trends? What's the impact? My wish and hope is that I can train and inspire many, many others of us to become GeroFuturists, because we have to look at that impact. When we look at the longevity economy, the opportunities are enormous, and especially for your audience and mine.
Right. Well, that's a great segue into what I was going to ask you next. And that is, people hear a lot about the longevity economy, right? Especially our listeners, because most of them are in this space or looking to get into this space.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about what you see or some of the challenges with it, but also some of the opportunities.
Well, I think the challenges are why, I should get this up, or a promo here, why I wrote this book, Gray is the New Green. Mm-hmm. Because corporate America, especially institutions, universities, are not paying attention to the 40-plus market. I prefer 40-plus to 50-plus, by the way, because midlife is really the kind of the foothills of the mountains of growing older. So I prefer that we include that age span. So corporate America is still looking at youth rules.
Yeah.
And youth rules to some degree, as we're seeing in the Bernie Sanders campaign. But the real marketplace that has the dollars, the power, the experience are those of us 40 plus. Mm-hmm. The problem is that most of the buyers and program people in media, for instance, are all in their 20s and 30s. And this is not something that is of interest to them, which has to change. And my belief is that it has to change, but it has to change because we have to broaden the story, the conversation around aging. As much as I focused on the 40 and do focus on the 40-plus market, my whole philosophy has changed in that I started realizing as I was writing the book that's coming out in September, The Ageist Way. Oops, sorry, something just came up on my screen that shouldn't be there. Hold on. Sorry about that.
It's all right.
All right. Is that the real story for us around aging? We have to get it straight. It starts, depending on how you view conception, of course, but it starts as soon as you land on the planet. It is a lifelong process. So when you're 20, you have ageism. When you're 90, you have ageism. Can you remember when you were 20 and you were told you're too young? Maybe later on. Or you tried to enter and get jobs when you graduated from college. Now, worse than ever, of course, is no, you don't have enough experience, you're too young. 90, you're too old, you can't possibly doing what you're doing. Even now at 72, people go, 72? How could you be 72 and doing what you're doing? Well, of course I'm 72 doing what I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? So the story now has to cover the whole spectrum so that when a 20-year-old or a 30-year-old or a 40-year-old is purchasing media or bringing people into their workforce, they appreciate the value of someone who's older as well as themselves, that we're all in this together. Our values are all the same.
Right.
Right? And so
Absolutely.
We have to change that story. But I've had an interesting bunch of experiences, having been in corporate America, especially in financial services. A few years ago, I was called in to present and bring a proposal to an insurance company. And I was shocked because the rate of turnover of female advisors, agents, whichever, is enormous. They can't hold on. They can't attract enough and they can't hold on to them. And I brought in this proposal about how to train and re-language, if you would, re-story the conversation they were having both internally to the company and in the field force, especially the field force. It's so important. And, they just weren't able to go there. They wanted to keep the status quo, even as women were walking out the doors. So that's the kind of thinking that has to change. And, now I think it will start to change because there are so many of us. The old adage or rule when we were young as boomers was, if you're over 30, don't trust us, right? Mm-hmm. None of us are under 30 anymore.
Right.
So that whole mindset is beginning to shift. So those are the kind of challenges. The other challenges are that boomers are not, up until now anyway, we're not particularly interested in talking about aging. In fact, I even watch in my own copy. I'll use growing older. I'll use mature. But
Right.
aging is not a phrase that boomers like to hear. So all of that has to start shifting. So those are some of the negatives. The positives are this is the most incredible gold mine or silver mine or platinum mine of opportunity for everyone, because anything that we create, innovate, serve to the 50 plus or the 40 plus market is going to affect everybody.
Yeah.
It's going to be used across generations.
Mm-hmm.
So the opportunity is enormous. And for young people, unfortunately, wherever I've been, I see a paucity of young people in our field. But interesting, on my LinkedIn account, which I'm very, very careful about who I let in and who I don't, and I let in people in our field, obviously, I'm starting to notice younger people linking in with me, but they're not typically from the States.
Yeah. A
So,
lot. I noticed the same thing.
So it's beginning, but it's not yet here. And one of my big missions is I want to get not only boomers who are returning or changing careers, of course, but to the young people. This is a field to get into, because anything that you care about, anything that moves you, can be turned into a product or service to serve this market.
Right. It's interesting you say that. I was telling Aaron yesterday that I was contacted by a gentleman who's an instructor in a local school system. I don't know where it's at, but he is putting together a program for high schoolers in conjunction with some local colleges. He's doing an intro program to get kids interested in working with older adults, so he can use that as a gateway to transition them into programs at a college level.
Perfect.
It was a high school vocational concept around home mods.
Yeah.
As a,
Right.
remodeling as a vocational training. So
Fabulous.
Yep. And I know, I can't do what I do as an architect if there aren't guys pounding nails and running chop saws. I mean, that's not done by robots. So,
Exactly.
there's all ends of the field spectrum that have to come into play to make all this work, because, aging in place doesn't work without transportation. So we need drivers. And, to think that it just has to be CEOs is incorrect, just like thinking one silo solves it is incorrect.
Exactly.
So,
but we also have to change that notion that when we talk about aging, that we're talking only about jobs in terms of bedpan cleaning.
Right.
And we have a great need, and I have an enormous respect for the people that do those jobs. But that is not the entire field. And I think people, especially young people, tend to think that that's what we're talking about instead of innovation.
Right. And Karen, you already answered my next question, so I'm going to replace it with a cute story about the fact that you're talking about the misperception of the 20s, for example. I joined Rotary probably 8 years ago, and well, it must have been more than that. Anyway, I was 30 something. Okay.
Right.
And it was a Saturday morning, and there's a tennis court across the street from my house. And these two high school seniors, probably a boy and a girl, probably combined total body fat of 4%, and wearing clothes to prove it. And it's a Saturday morning, and about 12 bike riders go by on the waterfront, and one of the bike riders whistles at the girl, and the girl turns to her, I'm assuming senior boyfriend, and said, "Oh, gross! What was that guy like? 30?" And that's when I knew I was old enough to join Rotary. Because apparently I was the creepy old guy at, 34 years old or something. So anyway, it's misconception, but to think that it won't affect anybody at any level in any job or educational training in the next 30 years is incorrect.
Well, another thing that I've talked with people about over the years is we're trying to figure out what is going to be done with the boomer generation as they grow older. And I mean, there's just so many of them. That's going to impact so many things in our culture and in our government, and in the way services are provided, the infrastructure that's used, so forth and so on. So it absolutely is going to affect them, because whatever we do now, those 20-year-olds, those 30-year-olds, they're getting some rendition of what the boomers are going to get.
Yep.
So it is absolutely everyone's concern.
Right. But I think there's another piece of that I want to talk to young people about. I hear that they don't think there's a future.
Mm-hmm.
This is it, and they're pretty jaded already, unfortunately. Yeah. But the reality is, we're talking about the longevity economy. We're talking about people that are alive today, living till 90, and older, of course. But I heard a stat recently. I can't remember whether it was from a futurist organization or not, but they were saying that somebody today, living today, now I don't know if that's an infant or not, but living today could age till 1,000 years old.
What?
That's like, stretching my mind a little too sci-fi for me. Yeah. But just the idea that, right now we're saying that we believe the human body can live to 114, right? At least today we can concretely say that. So when we're talking to teens or 20s or 30s or even 40s, I mean, look at the span of time. So to say there's no future, to stop now, to try to even pick one career now is ludicrous.
Yeah, absolutely.
So aging affects all of us because of the opportunities are enormous. Absolutely. And the innovations that will arrive to keep us vital, not only old.
Yeah, and it's a lifestyle discussion, not an aging discussion. I think that we, one of us needs to write a blog or an article titled "Aging, It's Not a Bedpan Business" or something like that, right? I mean, there's your tag.
Yeah.
So what is your advice to somebody that is looking, based on the trends you're seeing, looking to get into this market or looking for a new opportunity? Because our listeners, we have established contractors, we have occupational therapists that have staff, but we also have those people that are sitting on the edge of the pool with their toes in the water going, dare I get in? And if so, where should I swim?
Okay, yeah. Well, and that's a very big question, but to start off the conversation, though, I have always believed that where you belong is where your passions, your purpose, your values intersect with the trends that are coming.
Very true.
So so let's assume right now we're saying the trend is, of course, the aging and the needs in that aging marketplace, right? Mm-hmm. But it's finding where your passions intersect on that ground. I mean, obviously, I'm a business person. I'm a marketing strategist. It's in my genes. But that's a tool. That's a way of getting my passion satisfied. My passion is about the future and the future of aging, the future of business of aging, and of women especially, because there'll be more of us and more of us living, and we need a place to, a way to express ourselves and make a living and not end up in poverty, which most of the women today will, unfortunately. So it's taking the time to know what is it that turns you on. Right. That's so critical. And then it's finding people that are doing that, either apprenticing with them, interviewing them, finding out where you fit in that niche. Yeah. Well, and it's hiring someone and anybody that you can find that has credentials and knows this work and knows this field. Mm-hmm. That's someone that anybody in your audience should be contacting and working with, because this is not an easy thing. It is not easy to find where you belong. But I want to give you some examples, though. I had, on another call-in that I had, one woman kept talking about she was going to senior centers. And she was presenting at senior centers about conscious aging, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. And I said to her, and she was complaining that she goes, but nobody's really all that interested, right? And I had to be, I'm pretty truthful, straight, direct, right? So I said, well, how about the fact that you're going to a senior center? The fact that it's even called a senior center is so outdated. dated. I don't even use that term in any of my copy, not in any of my books either, for that matter. So it's changing that perception of what does it mean to be at a senior center, right? You're not going to find boomers typically going to a senior center. It's not going to happen. So what I clued her in was, you're in the wrong place.
Yeah.
Find another segment, and that I would certainly work with her on it, but find another grouping to go to that are ready and raring to hear what you have to say. Just because it's a senior center doesn't mean that's where you go.
No, that's a good point. We teach at Booming Your Bottom Line, and it's from my experience, speaking your way to local expertise. It's an actual program that we have, and I started by going to Rotary and Kiwanis and Lions because that's actively aging people that have purpose and drive and interest in society as a whole and learning. They're consummate learners, and that's a great place to start that. And then that's how you end up in Chicago or Tokyo or 5 years later, is through those opportunities and people we meet like you. And I'm sure your time with Dr. Moody must have been truly fascinating. I know, Patrick Rodin really sees him as a mentor as well. And so anyway, yeah, you're totally right that getting in the right place and calling it the right thing and speaking a language that resonates, another thing we coach,
exactly,
makes all the difference in the world.
Exactly. And also, I think there's another decision people have to make in terms of who you want to speak to. Are you going to the, shall we say, the roots of the tree, or are you going to the top of the tree? Okay. Who do you want to serve? And who wants to hear what you have to say? One of the questions I get asked a lot, I just want to, see how she said it. What is an effective way to, introduce compensation into the conversation? And I thought, well, the problem is if you're talking to people that cannot afford your services, either package it differently so they can, as in a group format, or go to another segment. And unfortunately, most of us in the field are not business people, and we're not marketers. And we have to become that. I had another great question that this may relate to your audience also. I had a guy who's in financial services, so of course I could relate to him totally. And he said, I see you're all over the internet, which was a nice compliment. I've worked hard to be so-called all over the internet. I'm not exactly all over, but it's nice to be there. And he was very, very concerned. He didn't want to go on the internet full steam ahead. He was afraid of competition, of people stealing from him. And a flash went off in my head that we're back to, and I've been there. I used to feel the same way, like, oh my God, somebody's going to steal from me. They're going to rip me off. What am I going to do? It's competition. And I didn't figure this out myself. I had millennials on my team who straightened me out very quickly, and I resisted. But the reality is we're in the sharing economy. Get with it.
Absolutely.
So you have to share. And if you don't share, then you're out of the economy is basically what it comes down to. So it's longevity economy plus sharing economy. So that how I resolve that for myself is that I am very clear about the profile of who I want to allow into my tribe online. And for the people that come into my tribe, it's open doors.
Right.
Outside of that parameter, no. But this is a question for all of us who are in our 40s and our 50s and our 60s and 70s, et cetera, is that if you want to play in this field, then you have to play and share,
Oh, you are speaking our language. It's funny. We do a lot of interviews, right? We've talked to a lot of people who, a lot of the people that are in our audience would look at as being experts or, thought leaders in the various industries associated with aging. So we get to hear at a much higher perspective some of the same thoughts that we have, right? The things that we're teaching. And it's actually really exciting to talk to people like you and Mary Furlong and others. And you're echoing the things that we're teaching people every day. And it's funny, I'm listening to you as you're talking, Okay, and
I'm glad.
I'm hearing you talk about, getting mentoring, right? I'm hearing you talk about figuring out who
Absolutely.
you're going to serve, about using the right words, and addressing the specific customer that you want to sell
Correct.
to.
Yeah.
And it's the exact same thing that we're teaching. Even
Yep.
more interesting than
Good.
that, and I don't
Good.
want to go on about this, but even more interesting is you talking about the concept of people resisting that. Okay, because we get that every single day.
Yep.
We have people come to us saying, "I want to serve this market. I've dedicated, myself or my team or this much of my business or whatever it is to serving this market, and I'm coming to you because." And when they say you, they mean Aaron and I.
Right.
Because you're the leaders, and you're saying the things that make sense to us. What do we need to do?
Right.
And then we tell them, and they go, oh, okay, well, I'll get back to you. I mean, it's total resistance. And I get it.
Right.
I know it's human. It's the way humans work
Psychology.
sometimes.
Well, I think it's more than that, if I might interject.
Yeah.
Not everybody's an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
So, although the stats show us that more and more people between 44 and 74 are becoming entrepreneurs, and by the way, most of them women are starting new businesses,
Yeah.
but not everybody's cut out for it.
No.
The roller coaster, the challenges, the lack of having a full life most of the time, right?
Yep.
Mhm.
Is not easy. And so not everybody should be an entrepreneur. But, and I think that may be some of that resistance, because what you have to do that you and well, all three of us advise people and help people do is not easy. You have to really be willing and be committed to go down that path.
And
And so you only want to work, at least that's how I feel. I only want to work with the people that are really committed and willing to do it. Otherwise, I don't want to waste my time. I don't have enough time left.
Oh, yeah.
It has to be with the right people.
yeah,
right?
I didn't get into business to babysit or pull teeth. So, if
Exactly.
either I would have been a dentist or a nanny, and I'm not. So, at
Exactly.
the end of the day, some will, some won't. So what? But you're right, though, that many of us, if you read the E-Myth, right, the myth of the entrepreneur, many of us were technicians first at some level. So for me, drafter, architect, right?
Right.
Then you decide, oh, I could do it better than my boss. And now I'm out here floating in the ocean going, what in the hell
Right.
did I just sign up for? And what about the
Right.
92 things I know nothing about?
Uh-huh.
Right. Exactly.
Whether it's, QuickBooks and accounting or marketing and sales or,
Exactly.
but you're right. I mean, yes, we're cut from a certain cloth. The right people will stand up and self-identify as long as you are speaking a language that relates and resonates with them. Michael Thomas out in California calls it, with regard to aging, Cleopatra syndrome, the queen of denial.
Right.
Right. And we can't fix that. But
No.
the right people that care to plan ahead will talk to me about aging in place. The right people who say, yes, I found that my passion and a skill set intersect with the longevity economy.
Exactly.
They'll step up and they'll find people like you and Mark and I, and they'll say, yes, I'm ready to invest in myself.
Exactly.
And the rest of them will, go back to buying tape cassettes 8 at a time and using them as doorstops, not,
And
self-improvement
spending-
products.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
Speaking of
There's
that,
something else, though, on that, is that, because I don't want to denigrate the other side of it, is that we need people in corporations, in institutions, in universities, or in just any business for that matter, who will take the role of the intrapreneur, who can be the visionary or trailblazer, not as an entrepreneur, but inside. We need that as much as we need the entrepreneur. So, come on, we can help you too, because
exactly.
we could show you how to be the intrapreneur and get things done. And you may be in the wrong company. That's the other point. You may have to change lanes, but the opportunity is there, either side, entrepreneur or intrapreneur.
Mark, you were going to say?
Yeah, well, I agree with what you just said, Karen. And also, in talking about finding someone to help you figure out what you need to figure out, right? Where do you fit in, or where are your best services, or whatever it happens to be for for you as a business owner.
Yeah.
What about you? What do you do to increase your knowledge or sharpen your focus or help you run a better business? I mean, whether it's reading or coaching or training or whatever it is. What have you done to help you get to the point where you're at now?
Excellent.
Well, it's a 40-year career, so it's
Yeah.
kind of pulling all of that together. I was a hotshot in marketing, strategic marketing, leadership development, breaking boundaries. I was called the leader of the new breed, so all of that was in my early years. That didn't go away. I went back to school, like I said, and I knew, there's some other things that I haven't shared. When I was younger, I was 28, and I was a young mom. I was an entrepreneur at that time. I had my own company that was doing quite well, and I got a phone call, and that phone call was from my mom. And I remember I had one of those long phones, long wire phones, right?
Oh, yeah.
I'm doing the dishes. The kids are probably watching Sesame Street or something at the time. And the phone rings, and I pick it up, and I said, "Oh, hi, Mom." And at that point, she was 58. And she said, "Karen, I need to talk to you." I went, I'm paraphrasing, of course. And I said, "Okay, what's up?" She said, "I just drove into a toll booth, head on." I was like a deer in headlights, of course, like, what is she telling me? And I said, "Mom, why did you do that?" I mean, what a dumb question to have asked, but that's all I come up with at the time. Why did you do that?
You're in shock.
Sorry?
You were in shock.
Total shock. But it was actually, in the end, the right question, because the answer was because the voices on the radio told me to. In that moment, my life just completely shifted.
Oh, yeah.
Completely shifted. I knew that she was deep into early onset Alzheimer's, and there was no bringing her back. It was over. So here was a woman at 58. Here I am at 28, realizing that this might befall me as well, and that her life was over. In that short conversation, everything I did for the rest of my life changed. I got out of a marriage, sold my business, went into corporate America, and began my long life dedication to the field of aging, and especially to women and aging and what it means to be a woman as we grow older. So that was one major event in my life that changed it. All of us have stories like that. I'm not alone in that. But that story is what, if we look back, weaves us through the rest of our life and the choice. And if we really listen, that's why I meant that people really have to pay attention if they're going to make these changes that the three of us support, is you have to go back and find those stories, find those threads, because that will lead you to what your role is. So it was easy then for me to go back and get a postmaster's degree. It was easy for me to keep studying in the field. When you ask me what I did when I was in postgraduate, at that point everything was about, disease and disaster and death and dying. Yeah. It was, aging was not a positive thing. No. And I remember I went up to Rick and said, "Look, I'm leaving. I'm out of this program. It's not for me." And he said, "What would you want to do?" I said, "We have to bring in positive aging, conscious aging." I mean, that's what I called it back then, was conscious aging. And he said, "Okay, I want you to teach a course. Will you teach the first professional course in conscious aging at Brookdale Center on Aging of Hunter?" And of course I did, and it was phenomenal. So, but the point I'm trying to make is you have to show up.
Oh, yeah.
You have to keep showing up. And I mean, I'm going to do that all the way until I'm not here anymore. I'm going to keep showing up. It's the only way the doors open and opportunities come forward. You have to be willing to show up. Absolutely. Okay. So,
go ahead.
But ongoing, I'm a lifelong learner, and every one of us has to be able to do that. I mean, you taught me about doing Skype yesterday, and I, flustered or whatever it was, and I flustered through it. But I know now that my next step is webinars and podcasts. So I'm constantly showing up and finding out what's current that is going to serve me to do what I came here to do. I do believe this is my destiny. This is my destiny calling. Everything that has happened to me, too many stories to share here, that kept saying, you are on this path. Stop trying to get off the path. This is your path. This is your destiny.
Well, speaking of many more stories, we'll get to the books in a second.
Yeah, sure.
But give us your golden nugget, knowing who this audience is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, small to mid-sized companies, they're, OTs or remodelers, or, Mark and I both came out of the aging in place space to do this. So what's the golden nugget to get somebody off the edge of the pool and help them succeed?
First, realizing that the pool is so lucrative that if you don't jump in, you're going to get run over.
True.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's the first real reality check that every single one of us has to do, right? And then the second is you have to get professional help. I don't think you can do this on your own.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can, but you'll flail around, you'll waste a lot of time and money, and you may never get to where you really belong.
That's fair. Very fair. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. So, Karen, why don't you go ahead and tell us about your new books?
Well, actually, there are 3 books I want to speak about. I've written 11. 2 of them are journals, workbooks that go with the books. So let's say 9 then. There was a book I wrote back in 2012, which is getting circled back again, which I'm thrilled about. And it came out of my postmaster's degree program. I started saying, okay, here I am, a woman. My mother died at 58. What's my future going to be like? And so I interviewed hundreds of women who were over the age of 60, all the way through, early hundreds. And that book synthesized down, or and that's not the right word, but it came down to what I produced in 2012. I took certain of those interviews that I had with women that I thought were phenomenal visionaries about aging and about who we are as we age. And it's called Visionaries Have Wrinkles.
Yep.
And that title is just great. And I think, Aaron, that's when we first probably met, is when I was doing a lot of speaking on that. What does it mean to serve the baby boomer market? And what does it mean to serve women baby boomers, which is a whole big area that I want people to get into. It is where it's happening. And unfortunately,
there's a she economy, right?
Yeah,
I mean, for
exactly.
sure.
And in that she economy, those women, we do not trust marketers, financial advisors, we're you got to win us over, and now is the time.
Men don't know anything about winning. Yeah, right. Yeah, we know that's a battle. Thank you very much.
Exactly. So I then started a year and a half ago. I unfortunately was flat on my back for a year and a half, healing from a surgery that went awry. But I said, okay, what am I going to do with this time? I had already started writing a new book, and I said, okay, I'm being called to do this now. And so I wrote over that time the new book that's coming out in September that Erin's read, and I think you've read. Oh no, your mom has read it.
Mom has it right now. I've read Gray is the New Green. Yeah.
And that one's called The Ageless Way, and it is a major book. Paul Irving, on the future of aging, has called it a new model of aging, so a new evolutionary model of aging. So I'm very excited about the response that I'm getting to it. But as I looked at it, I kept saying, this book is a big book. It's a reference book to come back to year after year after year, to go back and get the golden nuggets that you need as you move through your life. And I kept saying, I have to break through that barricade that we're talking about, the denial, the not wanting to pay attention to this market. And those people are not going to buy this big book until I get them turned on. So one of the chapters in The Ageless Way is called Gray is the New Green. And I left it in the book, but I took that out and expanded it and brought it into the book that came out in March, which is doing extremely well now, which is this one, The Gray is the New Green. I don't know if you can even see it on there, but...
Oh, yeah.
Same one that's on my nightstand. Yep.
Oh, cool. Because, someone just told me they read it on the plane. I said, that's why I did it. It's 121 pages. Anyone can read it on a flight going back and forth, or on the weekend, whatever, because I want to wake people up. And that book does that. It's the why, but it's also some of the how-to. I think out of the work that I'm now moving into, bringing my old life of being a marketer, is I'm going to show people the how-to. And the three of us can do that together, but it's showing the how-to is the next step, right? So it's Visionaries of Wrinkles, Gray's the New Green, and then my life legacy book, not my last, but it is my legacy book, is The Age of Sway, coming out in September.
Awesome.
Excellent.
And then where can we find those as far as websites?
I'd love you to go to my site, of course.
Yeah.
It's KarenSands.com, so it's easy if you know my name. And there will be a store page where you can see all the books, including the ones that will be updated over the next year or so. And or you can go to Amazon if that's your preference. Especially if you're a Prime customer, you should go to Amazon so you don't pay for postage.
Pay for shipping.
Yeah.
See, they want value and a good deal, and they still. I get it. You're speaking it and you're walking it. I love it.
I hope so. Yeah.
Well, Karen, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you here today. You're clearly leading the way, both as a entrepreneur and a female and a GeroFuturist. So we appreciate your leadership and your willingness to kind of step out and step forward and be a voice for positive change across the globe. And now that we know how to get a hold of you, I'd recommend, as have I, that folks do go to KarenSands.com and get a hold of one of those books, because it's going to get you off the edge of the pool when you see what you're missing. It's not called the Silver Tsunami for nothing, and if you don't start paddling, you will get run over. You'll drown for not having gotten out in front of the waves. So,
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
well, everybody, that was awesome, and I appreciate
so
Karen
much.
being here, and Mark, as we do every week. We hope that you guys enjoyed hearing from Karen today, and that you're leaving with some things to think about, because you guys are getting something at Booming Your Bottom Line that not many people are getting, and that is solid information from industry thought leaders across the globe. If you've listened to 20 of our podcasts, you'll hear the same names coming around this discussion, because that's the world we're working in. Like Karen said, do you want to talk to the roots, or do you want to view it from the top of the tree? Take it all to heart, mull this over, and then act, okay? Without implementation, knowledge is not much. So thanks for listening, Karen. It's been a blessing and an honor.
Yeah, me
Until
too.
next time, be well, be bold, and boom your bottom line.
Thank you.